Jake Miller had worked at Henderson's Hardware for nearly 30 years. At 64, his weathered hands could match any pipe fitting without measuring twice. And his encyclopedic knowledge of power tools had saved countless weekend projects from disaster. The small-town store in Mapleton had been his sanctuary after returning from Desert Storm with a purple heart and nightmares that wouldn't quit. "Morning, Mr. Miller," called out Benny Thompson, a local teen who'd started working weekends. "Got those garden hoses restocked like you asked?" Jake smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "Good man. Mrs. Donovan will be in at 10 sharp for one. Always plants her tomatoes the second weekend of May." The bell above the door chimed, and in walked William Preston in his tailored suit. 6 months ago, Henderson's Hardware had been purchased by Preston Corp., a regional chain looking to expand. The older Preston had promised nothing would change, just an injection of capital to help modernize. But then he'd handed management to his son. William strode past customers without acknowledging them, heading straight for Jake. "Miller, we need to talk." His voice was clipped, impatient. "Sales are down 12% from projections." "Well, spring came late this year. Folks are just starting their projects. Always happens when—" William cut him off. "Corporate doesn't do excuses. We're implementing a new system." He dropped a thick binder on the counter. "Standardized sales procedures. Scripts for customer interactions. Upselling protocols." Jake flipped through the pages, frowning. "People come here because we know what they need, not to get sold things they don't." William's smile didn't reach his eyes. That old-fashioned thinking is exactly the problem. Starting Monday, everyone follows the new playbook. He tapped the binder. "Or they can find somewhere else to work." As William walked away, Jake noticed the Employee of the Month wall, where Henderson had hung photos of staff for decades, had been replaced with Preston Corp advertising. The first red flag wasn't the new rules. It was the way William had looked through Jake, as if 30 years of service meant nothing at all. By the book Monday morning arrived with a mandatory staff meeting before opening. William handed out laminated cards with sales scripts. "Good morning, valued customer," Jake read aloud, his voice flat. "Welcome to Preston Corp Hardware, where your project is our priority. Can I interest you in our special promotion on premium paint supplies?" "Exactly," William nodded. "And remember, no more of this, let me show you the cheaper option business. We're here to maximize revenue, not save customers money." Later that day, Mrs. Donovan, who'd been coming in for 20 years, asked Jake about fixing her leaky faucet. "Well," Jake began, reaching for the simple washer he knew would solve the problem. William appeared behind him. "What Mrs. Donovan really needs is our deluxe force replacement kit," he interrupted, pulling a $89.99 box from the shelf. "Oh, I don't need all that," Mrs. Donovan protested. "Jake always helps me find just the part. Our senior staff sometimes get stuck in outdated thinking," William said smoothly. "This comprehensive solution prevents future problems." Jake felt his ears burning. "Actually, ma'am, if you'll just—" "Miller?" William's voice hardened. "A word in my office. Now." To Mrs. Donovan he added, "Tommy will finish helping you." In the cramped back office, William didn't offer Jake a seat. "You directly contradicted company policy." "I was trying to help a loyal customer." "Your job isn't to help, it's to sell." William checked his watch. "I'm writing you up for insubordination. One more incident, and you'll be suspended without pay." That night, Jake found himself demoted from the main register to the lumber section in the back. His hours were cut from 40 to 32, just enough to lose his full benefits. When he called the regional manager to complain, he was told, "William Preston has full authority to run the store as he sees fit." Turning up the heat, by the third week under William's management, Henderson's Hardware didn't feel like the same store. 4 long-time employees had quit, replaced by college kids willing to work for minimum wage. Customer complaints had doubled. Jake was now required to clock out for bathroom breaks. His employee discount was revoked for policy violations. When he tried explaining to a customer why they didn't need the expensive drill William was pushing, he found his hours cut again, down to 28 per week. "He's trying to force you to quit," said Martha King, the cashier who'd worked there almost as long as Jake. "That way he doesn't have to pay unemployment." "I know," Jake sighed, "but I'm 3 years from full retirement. I can't afford to leave." William's new policies extended beyond sales. Jake's designated parking spot, given to him years ago when his old war injury flared up, was reassigned to management. The break room coffee, once free, now cost $1 per cup. The final straw came when William posted everyone's sales figures on a public board, with Jake's name in red at the bottom. Next to it, in William's handwriting, "Extinction is the fate of those who cannot adapt." That afternoon, Bill Jefferson, Jake's old army buddy who ran the auto shop across town, stopped by. "Place feels different," he muttered, looking around at the corporate banners. "It's dying," Jake whispered. Bill noticed Jake's limp was worse. "Your knee acting up. Had to start taking the bus. Parking's too far now with my spot gone." As they talked, William appeared, eyeing Bill's grease-stained coveralls with disdain. "Employees shouldn't socialize during work hours." "I'm a customer," Bill replied. "Not dressed like that. You're not. We have a certain clientele we're cultivating." After Bill left, fuming, William cornered Jake by the paint mixers. "Your kind of customer isn't our focus anymore. Neither is your kind of employee." Jake felt something in him harden. "My kind built this town." "Well," William smirked, "times change." The final straw Jake arrived Tuesday morning to find the schedule changed. He'd been moved to inventory, counting stock in the unheated warehouse behind the store. His workstation had been cleared, his personal photos of Desert Storm buddies dumped in a box labeled Miller Reno V. "You can't do inventory sitting down," William explained with false concern. "But I'm sure your condition won't be a problem." By noon, Jake's knee had swollen to twice its normal size. Martha snuck him some ibuprofen. "He's breaking every labor law in the book," she whispered. "Not much I can do about it." The next day, Jake overheard William on the phone. "We'll have the old-timers cleared out by month's end. Their benefits were killing the bottom line." A pause. "Miller's the stubborn one, but he's got a medical discharge. Push him hard enough physically, he'll crack." Jake's hands trembled. 30 years of service, and they were trying to break him like he was nothing. That Friday, Jake's worst fears materialized on the break room bulletin board. A modernization initiative, announcing all employees with over 20 years of service would be reassessed for role suitability. But it was what happened next that broke him. Mrs. Donovan came in, leaning heavily on her cane. "Jake, that expensive faucet kit failed. My kitchen flooded. I tried calling, but they said you don't handle customer service anymore." Before Jake could respond, William intercepted them. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Miller isn't authorized to handle returns or complaints." "But he's the only one who knows." "Perhaps you installed it incorrectly," William suggested. "User error isn't covered by our return policy." Mrs. Donovan's eyes welled up. "I can't afford a plumber. My insurance won't cover." "Not our concern," William said firmly. "Now, unless you're making a purchase." Jake stepped forward. "I'll come by after work. We'll fix it." "You will do no such thing," William snapped. "The hell I won't." Jake's voice carried across the store. "This isn't right. None of this is right." William's smile was cold. "That sounds like insubordination, Miller. Clean out your locker. You're suspended pending termination review." As security escorted him out, Jake caught a glimpse of Benny's shocked face, of Martha wiping tears, of customers watching in confusion. 30 years ended with a walk of shame. At home, Jake stared at his empty kitchen and did something he hadn't done since coming home from war. He wept. Then his phone rang. It was Bill Jefferson. "I heard," his old friend said simply. "Don't you dare give up. We're going to fight." "Assembling the tools, it's complicated," said Lisa Anderson, the labor attorney Bill had called. "Age discrimination is illegal, but they've created a paper trail of performance issues." Jake, Bill, and Lisa sat in Bill's auto shop after hours, surrounded by the comforting smell of motor oil and the distant hum of the air compressor. "So William wins?" Jake asked, deflated. "I didn't say that," Lisa smiled. "I just need more ammunition." Over the next week, a quiet resistance formed. Martha began documenting every questionable policy change. Benny, despite his age, proved surprisingly adept at copying internal memos. Bill reached out to local veterans groups, quietly spreading word about how Preston Corp treated Desert Storm heroes. Lisa discovered something critical. Preston Corp had received tax incentives for purchasing Henderson's, contingent on maintaining existing staff and community involvement. "They violated the terms," she explained. "But we need proof of systematic targeting, not just your case." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tommy, one of William's new hires, approached Jake outside his apartment. "I thought you should see this," he said, handing over a USB drive. "It's the internal performance metrics. They've been doctored. And there's more, recordings of management meetings. Mr. Preston talks about clearing the deadwood, and specifically mentions pushing out older workers before their pensions vest." "Why are you doing this?" Jake asked. Tommy looked down. "My grandfather worked 40 years at the mill before they pulled the same stunt. Nobody fought for him. Someone should fight this time." Armed with this evidence, the group expanded. Mrs. Donovan rallied the neighborhood seniors. The local VF2 Post offered their hall for meetings. Even Henderson himself, retired in Florida, sent a notarized letter expressing outrage at how his former employees were being treated. "William doesn't realize it yet," Bill said, but he picked a fight with the entire town. Turning the screws, the Mapleton Gazette's headline caught William off guard. "Local veterans ALEGES CY Holland at PRESTONCOP hardware." The article detailed Jake's situation, complete with quotes from longtime customers about declining service and community support. It mentioned the tax incentives and hinted at potential violations. William's damage control began immediately. A company-wide email warned against speaking to the press. Community outreach, discount coupons flooded mailboxes. A hastily arranged photo op showed William donating tools to the high school. But the pressure continued mounting. The county commissioner, whose brother had served with Jake, began reviewing Preston Corp's tax arrangement. The Better Business Bureau received dozens of new complaints. The regional manager started making unexpected visits. Martha reported that William was shredding documents after hours. The corporate website quietly removed claims about valuing experienced employees and community legacy. Then came the radio interview. The local station invited Jake to discuss his 30 years at Henderson's. He spoke without bitterness, simply describing how the store had once functioned as a community hub, how Henderson himself had hired veterans specifically, how customers used to name request staff who knew their projects. "All I ever wanted was to serve my community twice. Once in uniform, once behind that counter," Jake concluded. The station's phone lines lit up with callers sharing similar stories from other Preston Corp locations. By afternoon, regional management was demanding answers from William. His response was to double down. Jake received a certified letter formally terminating his employment for violations of company policy and disparagement. Security cameras appeared overnight at employee entrances. William hired a PR firm to craft a response painting Jake as a disgruntled employee resistant to necessary modernization. But the momentum had shifted. William's parking space was mysteriously filled with potting soil one morning. Deliveries began arriving at odd hours with no one to receive them. Long-time suppliers, misplaced orders. Nothing illegal, just a community closing ranks. As Lisa gathered affidavits from former employees, an email arrived from an unexpected source. William's assistant, providing internal communications, showing the calculated nature of the staff changes. Mr. Preston, the last one read, please clarify your directive to find reasons to write up anyone over 50. Legal advises this could constitute actionable evidence of discrimination. The reckoning, the showdown occurred on a rainy Tuesday morning. Jake arrived at the store not as an employee but as part of a larger contingent. With him stood Lisa Anderson, clutching a thick legal folder. Behind them gathered 24 community members, veterans in service caps, seniors with determined expressions, former employees, and current ones who'd risked their jobs to attend. Inside, William was meeting with Marcus Daniels, Preston Corp's regional director, when the bell above the door chimed repeatedly as the group filed in. What's the meaning of this? William demanded, face flushing. Lisa stepped forward. We have documentation proving systematic age discrimination, violation of labor laws, and breach of the tax incentive agreement. She placed the folder on the counter. We're prepared to file suit today unless Mr. Miller is reinstated with full back pay and benefits, along with other affected employees. Marcus picked up the folder, his expression darkening as he flipped through its contents. These recordings are concerning William. They're taken out of context, William protested. This is absurd. We don't negotiate with veterans. Bill interrupted. Hard-working community members, loyal customers, who exactly don't you negotiate with? Mrs. Donovan stepped forward. I shopped here for 40 years. My husband bought his tools here before he passed. This isn't just a store, it's part of our community. Marcus glanced around at the gathered crowd, at the news reporter who'd slipped in, at the smartphones recording everything. He turned to William. You told me this was handled. That the complaints were isolated incidents. They are. These people, Marcus cut in, are our customer base. He turned to the crowd. On behalf of Preston Corp, I apologize for any mistreatment. I'd like to review these materials fully, but I can already see troubling patterns. William's face had gone from red to white. You can't possibly. I can and I will. Marcus's voice hardened. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending internal review. To Jake he added, Mr. Miller, I hope you'll consider returning while we address these issues. The crowd broke into applause. William, stunned, backed toward the door. You can't do this, he shouted. This is my store. An elderly man stepped forward. Mr. Henderson himself, flown in from Florida. Actually, son, he said quietly, it was never yours to break. Coming home 6 months later, Henderson's Hardware celebrated its grand reopening. The Preston Corp logo remained, but smaller, beneath the restored original Henderson sign. Inside, the store had been reorganized, modernized where it made sense, but with the community focus restored. Jake, now operations manager, moved through the aisles with a slight limp, but a straight back. His first official act had been to rehire the pushed-out employees who wanted to return. His second was to establish a formal mentoring program pairing veterans with young staff. The county had revised its business incentive program, adding stronger protections for existing employees during ownership transitions. 3 other Preston Corp locations were now implementing what regional headquarters called the Henderson model of community-centered management. William Preston had been reassigned to corporate headquarters, where rumors suggested he spent his days in a windowless office reviewing compliance reports. The internal investigation had revealed similar patterns at other locations he'd managed. As for Jake, the drawer of his new desk held a framed news clipping about the showdown, alongside an old photo of his Desert Storm unit. Below it was a simple plaque that read, Some battles are fought in distant lands. Others are fought where you live. Both are worth winning. On quiet afternoons, he still worked the floor, helping customers find exactly what they needed, not what would maximize the sale. "You could retire now if you wanted," Martha mentioned one day. "You made your point." Jake smiled, watching Benny show a first-time homeowner how to repair a doorframe. "Some things aren't about making points," he replied. "Some things are about keeping promises." "What promise is that?" she asked. Jake's eyes drifted to the Restored Employee of the Month wall, where Henderson's original philosophy was reinscribed. "We serve our neighbors as we'd wish to be served ourselves." "The one I made 30 years ago," he said quietly, "to create something worth coming home to." That evening, as Jake locked up, he noticed Mrs. Donovan chatting with Bill Jefferson outside, both holding shopping bags with the Henderson logo. Across the street, a vacant building now displayed a "Coming Soon" sign for a new veteran-owned coffee shop. The town hadn't just saved a hardware store. It had remembered what community meant in the first place. And some lessons, once learned, are not easily forgotten. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community, where we celebrate quiet strength, real struggles, and unexpected victories. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.